Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of ECIIA, the European Confederation of Institute of Internal Auditors, welcome to this webinar. And maybe as an introduction for those that join us for the first time, this is the second edition of a new type of webinar that we have decided together with the members of the ECIA Banking Committee to launch. And the main objective of this webinar series is to share with you the different topics that we are discussing at the ECIA Banking Committee, also the different topics that we are exchanging with the regulators and supervisor, and last but not the least, to share some experience with you on what we believe key topics for internal auditors in the banking sectors. And that's the reason why today we are going to deep dive on the use of artificial intelligence by internal auditors, and our dear guest speakers will tell you what is their own experience in their banks and what they are proud of sharing with you. In terms of logistics, we are going to use through the whole webinar Slido. So you can connect to Slido by reading the QR code that appear on the slide, or you can just go to your browser, Slido, and use the code banking2. Slido will be used to participate in the Q&A session that will be organized at the end of the webinar, but we will also ask some input from you through different polls. And last but not the least, at the end of the webinar, you will be able to fill in your details if you want to get a CPE certificate for 1 point for this webinar. So in terms of speakers today, we will have as a facilitator Claudio Testa. So Claudio is the Chief Audit Executive at Intesa Sanpaolo, based in Italy, in Milano. He's a member of the ECIA Banking Committee. He is also a member of the board of IIA Italy. He has a very strong experience in internal audit in the banking sector. And I must say that he's one of the first person that make a demo to me about the use of AI in his department. And that was very, very impressive. So I hope you will enjoy also the different case that you will see today. So Claudio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pascal, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to, first of all, to introduce our speakers. So I will try to facilitate our speakers who are very clever and experienced managers in internal audit. First of all, Chidao. Chidao is a managing director, regional head of internal audit Asia Pacific at Société Générale. And Chidao has over 25 years of experience in internal audit and has been leading Société Générale internal audit function in the Asia Pacific region since 2013. He is based in Hong Kong, has a strong advocate, is a strong advocate for people-centric leadership and continuous professional growth. As the second speaker is Andrea Cirillo. Andrea Cirillo is currently the head of audit data and advanced analytics at Intesa Sanpaolo Banking Group. So he is in my team. The team that Andrea manages is a center of excellence in the application of advanced analytics and artificial intelligence to the practice of internal audit. Andrea has over a decade of experience in the statistics, data science, and audit. He specializes in the application of advanced analytics and machine learning in the audit activities, notably in risk management and control system within the banking sector. And the third speaker is Ross Richards. from Nordea. He is currently Chief Internal Auditor responsible for data, artificial intelligence, third parties, and operations. Previously, Ross used to be Chief Operating Officer for Nordea Internal Audit Department, and then Global Head of Infrastructure Audit at Barclays and Vice President IT Audit at ING. So, welcome to all of you. Thank you for your availability. Double thanks to Chidao, since he's based in Hong Kong, and it is for him 10 p.m. at the moment. So thank you, Chidao, for your availability. First of all, as member of the ACII Banking Committee, I wanted to spend 1 minute for updating you about our role in relationship with the European Central Bank. And I want just to focus mainly on the relationship that we are having as a banking committee at ACIIA with the horizontal department at ECB. Our purpose is our committee aims to be the consolidated voice for the profession of internal auditing in the banking sector in Europe, and a respected partner for the European regulatory bodies. We are having this continuous dialogue with the ECB. Here you can see some examples of what we are dialoguing about with the ECB. The varying process for internal audit validation of the ECB findings. The second one is related to discuss with ECB about which is the best way to give assurance validation by internal audit on ECB findings. Another important topic we are discussing about is the collaboration and the level of reliance between the second level of defense and the third line. Different opinions coming from different ECB teams. I'm sure that in your experience, as well as in my experience, dialoguing with the ECB teams, we can have some time it happens that we find ourselves with conflict inputs from ECB teams. For example, an on-site inspection team that states require something that is different from what a previous other on-site inspection team requested to us or stated, and in other cases we have different comments, views from the on-site inspection teams, the horizontal view teams, the JST. So we are discussing with the ECB how to manage these situations that are that can happen and that must be faced by our department. Is very important the role that we had with the ECB with regard to the ECB guide on internal governance and the risk culture. Probably the new guide will be issued by the end of summer. As a banking committee, we have defined a specific list of comments, and we discussed it with the ECB. First of all, it's important to consider that the observed good practices that are inserted into the guidance must be very well defined by ECB. So I mean that these are good practices, but not expectations from ECB. Otherwise, it could be difficult for us to be compliant with all these so-called observed good practices. We asked for the recognition of the international internal audit standard as part of the guide, and we are sure that we will obtain this result. It's important to be well focused in the guide, considering different governance models for banks in Europe, because we have different governance models, and according to the kind of model, the monistic or dualistic or the traditional, we can have different impact on our governance schemes and methods. And then it's very important to enhance the flexibility for allowing a true risk-based audit approach. So it is very important for us that ECB states in the guidance that the internal audit plan must be risk-based, more and not coverage-based. This is something that we are discussing with the ECB. So let's move on to the topic of our webinar. But before we start, we ask you to go to Slido and to answer the questions. What key topics should the banking committee prioritize in its work list? So it is important for us, before we start with the panel discussion, to have some suggestion from you about the role of our banking committee at CAEs. Risk management, risk assessment, artificial intelligence for sure is the topic of the day. Well, very interesting. Risk management is still the most used suggestion, and the risk assessment, artificial intelligence. So culture is very important. Geopolitical risk is very important as well. And so we will take in consideration all these input for our brainstorming in the next banking committee meeting. But let's now move to the following part. I leave the floor again to Pascal before we start the panel discussion.
Thank you, Claudio. And I think we have already the topic for the next webinar. Risk assessment, risk management seems to be a good one. So thank you for the participants. In terms of news from the regulator, not so much to say. So quickly, in a nutshell, some of you maybe have heard that in the context of the retail fund management companies, but also investment management companies, ESMA has decided to assess the internal audit function. And I think that as a committee at the level of ECAE, we are going to follow up this assessment and share with you what have been the criteria for the assessment, but also give our opinion to ESMA on their criteria and share the report, but the report is due for 2026. But this is something to follow. As you know, ESG is a quite interesting topic that's part of the moving, unpredictable area for the moment, because in terms of European regulators, it has been a key priority for the last 2 years with a lot of regulation, especially for the financial sector that was at the head of all this initiative with all this regulation that you can see on this summary. And by the way, the slides will be shared with you, so don't worry. What we observe now is that there has been, with the new commission, a completely different mindset. meaning that actually they are reopening the discussion on the regulation on ESG. And there is already one decision that has been taken that is called Omnibus 1 or Stop the Clock. So they have decided to postpone by 2 years the implementation of the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive and 1 year the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive for all the companies that have not reported yet. 2 years and 1 year. Actually, it goes further in terms of reflection because there is Omnibus number 2, and Omnibus number 2 is really revisiting the whole directive and also the whole EU taxonomy. The discussions are going on, and this week is a very important one because there are very important discussions at the European Parliament for the moment. So what we can share with you is just where we stand for the moment, but this is not final at all. But the direction that we see is simplification. So I think the message that we have been hearing from the wave one and the companies that had to report on the CSRD is that it has been a very, very difficult exercise, a lot of investment in terms of money and very low return on investment because a lot of information has been published and is finally maybe not that useful. So there is a wish very clear from the regulators to go for simplification, and it includes revisiting the scope of the companies that would have to report on CSRD. In the context of simplification, there is also a clear message about the data points and the information that needs to be published, where the regulator now is mentioning that they want to simplify things and they want to focus more on what is really material. So a lot going on. In terms of assurance, as you know, they were asking for limited assurance from the external auditor for the moment, but with the idea of going to a reasonable assurance in the future. This is also, again, under discussion and reopened. And last but not the least, there was some discrepancy, I would say, between the CSRD and the SFRD, so the Sustainability Financial Sector regulation. The objective of the Commission is also to tackle this discrepancy and to make sure that the regulation, the new version of the regulation, will be completely harmonized. When are we going to have some news and a little bit of a final decision? In the autumn of this year, but this is a plan. I cannot guarantee that this is going to happen. So last but not the least, I wanted to share with you what are the priorities for the ECB based on their annual plan that they have been publishing. So their first priority is to strengthen the ability to withstand immediate macro financial trends and geographical shocks. I think we will all agree that this is a moving area and quite quick for the moment. Priority number 2 is to remain persistent about material shortcomings and effective and timely manner, so to make sure that the deficiency are fixed very quickly, and this is also part of the risk culture paper that Claudio was explaining to you in the introduction. And last but not the least, digitalization, changes of the business model and use of technology. So I will conclude here, and I will just invite you to follow up what we are going to publish in the coming weeks, because as every year we are going to organize our banking forum in collaboration with the ECB, and it will be on November the 3rd. Claudio, back to you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Slido again. Because before we start with our panelists, let's ask you, when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence by our internal audit department, what's your experience? Is something more related to use of data analytics, launch of a specific project, needs of new skills, a need of a new organization. So we are trying to ask all the possible dimensions for an internal audit department in order to face the topic of use of artificial intelligence. It seems that the need of new skills is at the moment something that is very, very important for you and for me too. Okay, so HR mainly is a matter of people, but also is also relevant, important, your opinion on the sophisticated use of data analytics, launch of a specific project, and last but not least, the need of a new organization. So I would ask first of all to Chidao to start with some consideration on these four possible dimensions, but mainly, Chidao, I would ask you to concentrate on the impact on the operational model of internal audit tools. So which journey have you followed in your experience for the use of artificial intelligence in Société Générale?
Yeah, so good day or good evening, everyone. Thank you, Claudio, for this opportunity. I'm very happy to share this moment with you. So let me share some slides because I like visual, right? So please tell me when you see my slide.
Yes, I see.
Okay, so let's move on. So to your question, Claudio, what was my journey? And actually, I use those slides. I prepared those slides a couple of years ago for my journey in big data. But the journey of AI is pretty much the same. So I will leverage on this slide, which again are related to data. So if I have to summarize, this was my journey. Okay, a very high mountain to climb, starting from the bottom of it. So if we zoom here, the starting point. So we started in Société Générale, internal audit data approach in early 2014. And in reality, during 3 years, it was quite a slow period of progress. The big dimension that we see, and we refer back to people, data, tools, and at the end, the delivery. In terms of people, to share with you, I remember we had one person in charge of data and innovation around the management team. And in each of our management meeting, everybody, including myself, was looking at this guy and asking him, so what do you have for us? And this didn't work because this poor guy was really dragging all this change on his shoulder. In terms of data access to data was very difficult at that point of time. In terms of tools, the tool that we had was good tools, not perfect, but good tools, but really lack of adoption from people, and we go back to people. And therefore, during 3 years, the delivery was a bit painful in reality. So we could do a couple of one-off performance, but we couldn't replicate systematically those performance. Right. Then, if we move to the second step, where we started to really climb the mountain. So we changed completely the model, and as the survey showed it, we would put really people in the center of our model. Okay, so you see, we still see the same dimension, the tooling, the data, then we add the method, because very quickly we wanted to have methodology and measurement of our progress. Okay, so how we did it? We did it based first on some very strong conviction, and this very strong conviction on this topic of data, but it's the same for AI, is that we need to equip our people with knowledge and tools. And we need to trust our people that they will do the job. We didn't want to go for like big project of hundreds of thousands of euros to implement tools. We wanted to start from the bottom actually, which is the people, and we equip them with the tools and we train them. The other very fundamental conviction we had is that it has to be data innovation for all. Meaning that in our model, we didn't want to create a kind of elite of auditor, the handful of people who knows what data is, and the rest. Okay, so it's a bit of how can I say, a very democratic approach of having data innovation for everyone. The other one, the other conviction is this open source, meaning that a lot of sharing and nothing belongs to individual. Okay, and the very fundamental things again is that this was a collective decision from the EXCO, so from the management committee of internal audit function, and this is fundamental things that I think this has to start from the top, which is really the tone from the top. Then how we embed this, and this means data innovation in really the root of people, is we include it has in the center of people development plan. Okay, so you see, I will not go through the detail of this, but starting in 2017, we engage the discussion with each of the staff, and again embed the usage of data approach innovation in their development plan, in their training. Okay, we started to give objectives and reward achievement. But we did it gradually. So year 1, year 2, it was about testing and experimenting, meaning that we had obligation to try, but the right to fail. And this was very important because we didn't want to kill, quote, to kill this newborn baby at the very beginning by imposing, starting year 1, objective of delivery. Okay. Then gradually, year 3, we started to have objective of delivering result. And year 4, which is, I would say, the last piece, which was to sharing to other. And sharing to other was within internal audit function, and as well outside of internal audit function in LOD1 and LOD2. Obviously, to support this, we built a data scientist team. And maybe we'll talk about the model, the different model that can exist. But the model we went through was really to have data scientists next to auditor. We didn't feel comfortable to have a bunch of data scientists somewhere centralizing and working remotely with auditor. And then again, the last piece of people, we started to change the JD and to embed, starting 2018, to embed really data skills in the new recruitment that we did. So that's, I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Cidao. Very interesting. It's very effective, the image of the mountain that you are climbing, but all of us are climbing, and I appreciate a lot that people. So your journey is people in the center of the model, and very nice the comment, the right to fail. So it means that as internal auditor, we need to create some safety environment for our people, and probably it's something we are not so particularly well trained, I had to say. Andrea, any comment from your side? And I would ask you about people. What is your experience in training people within the organization, and how to upskill? So Cidao talked about recruitment, but I want also some comment about how to upskill our people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, first of all, good evening to everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I can perfectly relate with the experience that Cidao was sharing with us. In our experience, in my experience, but I would say in our experience in Intesa Sanpaolo, is skills are at the core of transformation, because people are at the core And so we have to put skills and people skills at the very core of every kind of innovation and transformation. But I think that the audience can relate with this, since the more than 50% in the answer on the survey, more than 50% was for more than 50% the skills were a priority. So we can say that we agree on this topic with the audience, and in our experience was the same, because no real change you can have if the people, if your people don't embrace it, because people do not resist change, they resist being changed, I would say. But before me, someone else told this. And so this is really relevant. We have to understand that every kind of innovation, every kind of change has to go through people. What does it mean? It means that you have to organize some kind of, let's say, you have to define a model. So also Chida was telling something like that. You have to define a model, a conceptual model, let's say, and an ecosystem of initiatives, an ecosystem of projects. There is no killer app, let's say, in this field. There is no just one project, one application that will change everything. You have to define a path, you have to define a model, a target model. For instance, in our experience, the hub and spoke model worked quite well, is working, I would say, quite well. And the hub and spoke model, in our experience, is to have a center of excellence, yes, but not isolated from the rest, of course, as Chida was saying as well. You have to connect this center of excellence that takes you to the frontier to the spokes that are people that were not properly, let's say, formally trained on this kind of topics like data science, data engineering, but they are trained from the hub, or maybe they have other experiences, and so they are able to perform more basic applications. In this way, you create a network of people, and we know that innovation doesn't come from hierarchies, but it comes from networks. So what we are doing here in Intesa Sanpaolo, the department, is to develop and let's say nurture this kind of network when innovation spreads from every kind of node, let's say. Of course, you need to provide training. So we have done a lot of work on training. But if I have to be honest, I think that both formal training, but also informal occasions of meeting, of sharing, of telling to each other, oh, you know, this is really working. It's not just something that they say during the lessons, but it's really something that, in my experience, I mean, from the spokes, from the, let's say, let me tell you, the non-data scientist people, so to say, the no-data people, if they say that it's something that is really working, if they share this kind of experience with the others, this is gonna really introduce the change, the innovation. And this is done not just with the formal training that nevertheless is needed. We devote in our team, that is the Center of Excellence for the data science activities, we devote 30% of our effort to training. So, I mean, I really believe in formal training, but it is not enough. So, for instance, we created a community of data experts. This community is also more informal. There are also occasions for gathering, informal gathering. For instance, we organize an hackathon. We organize an hackathon with nearly 80 people, the auditors, and they challenge themselves on the internal data. So it's something more informal, but it's nevertheless really important because, as I was saying at the beginning, people must remain at the very core of every kind of strategy of innovation, because you cannot have any change without people. So it's really relevant. I can say that we had some good results. For instance, in one of our key metrics, that is the rating analytics. So it's measuring how much we use it in our activities. It moved in nearly 3 years from 20% to 70%. So it's something that was quite impressive. I mean, we were really happy about this, but it was really impressive also for us, because is not just something made from the center of excellence, but is something made from the people, from the audit people, and so from everyone working together for this objective.
Thank you, Andrea. So people in the center of the model is very nice. Ross, some comments from your side, and I would ask you your experience about the impact on the organization. We have seen that it is not the first topic due to the attendees, but tell me about your experience at Nordea.
Yeah, and I think our experience very much reflects the previous speaker's experience. I mean, it is a mountain. I would say that the one challenge I've got with the analogy is the mountain seems to be moving sometimes very rapidly as we're trying to climb it. But so are the tools, and that of course is something which is super exciting about this. Is we see, you know, like even in a couple of weeks, sometimes the tools have evolved to such an extent that something that was impossible suddenly becomes possible, and that's why, you know, going back to the people, you need the people who can actually see these possibilities and are adventurous enough to exploit the possibilities. And you know, I think I've mentioned before in some of the talks that one of the key moments for us was it was like 3 years ago. Someone came and said, "I've been playing with this thing called BERT, which was a large language model, and I've built a semantic search engine which we could use to search all of our audit issues and audit reports and group policies." And you know, find out what's relevant from a semantic search, which is a search using not actually the keywords but the meanings. And this was it was groundbreaking stuff at the time. Of course, roll forward 3 years, and all of your LLMs do that for you very simply. But it was the point is we had someone who kind of had that spark of innovation, took it and delivered something which we were then able to bring in. But in terms of the organization, that's been key, is that we have actually got this small group of experts who are able to sort of build on each other and I guess train and egg each other on. And then we've got, much like Andrea said, this hub and spoke model. So in the hub, we've got the small group of experts, but they work very closely with all the teams across the group. And then in each of the teams, we've got what we call a data ambassador, data analytics ambassador, and they are the people within each audit team who have more advanced skills, and they're linked in with the central team. So we very much have pursued that because we see that this isn't going to work without just about everybody in the audit team being able to do data, at least at the conceptual level, to come up with the ideas. And on that front, I think that one of the things that I would mention, which has been pretty successful in our opinion, is we went away a little bit into the cave in the advanced analytics team and worked on some specific use cases of AI, of some small large language models, to, for example, extract information, to do sentiment analysis, to do clustering. And then we went on a roadshow around all of the countries where we've got auditors, and we sat down and we said, these are some of the capabilities we've developed, and this is how we think you could use it. We then went into workshop mode and said, okay, now come with ideas of how you would use that capability in your audit. And we had some fantastic discussions there, and a lot of really good ideas coming out of that. And of course, then the engagement with teams, but how can you use this in the next thing? So I think that is one of the recent successes I think that we've had with actually bringing it to everyone. And then we've actually, building on that, had some, a lot of demand coming from, well, can we do this with it? And, then it's like, well, no, we can't do that, but we can do this. And you're getting the ideas from the business experts in the audit team. which you're then able to help them translate into things that you can test and things that you could never have tested before without AI. And that's where it's really, really great. So it is all about the skills. It is also about the organization, and it is also about the democracy of the skills, and making everyone aware.
Okay, very, very interested these new experiences for the business auditors. And now I would ask to all of you to, starting from Chidao, to share some use case, some best practice in your experience. And so I would start from Chidao. Chidao, if you wanted to also to add some comments to what Andrea and Ross said. And I would ask to tell the use case, to describe the use case using 3 minutes each, because we are a little bit late.
Sure. So I will share maybe 2 use cases, which was recently discovered. So apart from the assistant of helping to draft the audit report, which we do quite frequently, we have done recently root cause analysis. I was quite amazed. So in Société Générale, we have our own GPT, which is not ChatGPT, we have our own. Basically, you input in the machine a description of the symptom that we observe, a slight description of the context, and you ask the machine to draft a root cause analysis based on whatever model you want. It could be 5 whys, it could be Fishbone, it could be Ishikawa, etc. And the result is quite impressive. And we use it not to replace the brain of auditor, but we use it to help the auditor to structure their thinking process, actually. And it's very powerful. The other one, which I was even more surprised, is I just had a tollgate meeting with one of my team in China. And this auditor has nothing to do with developing codes, has been doing some Python codes using GPT on the real use case of converting PDF file into a Word file, etc. And this lady used, again, coded in Python, but because she didn't know how to code, she asked the machine to code for her by giving the machine instruction of, I want to do this, I want to do that, etc., etc. And the machine can even debug its own code. So, me, I'm not a techie at all. I'm an enthusiast, but not a techie. But I'm a lazy guy. And when I hear this, I'm happy.
Very, very, very clear. Very clear. Andrea, can you share some use case?
Yes. I think, especially related to the AI topic in the internal audit, currently we are working on 2 ways for the application of the generative AI. That is, of course, the latest trend and is really a promising one, even if not something mature, still not mature. But we are working on both sides, both the let's say the application to the fieldwork, audit fieldwork, so specific audit engagement, and the development of a more general project that is currently defined as an audit assistant, as everyone is saying, of course. But let me just give you some more detail on the 2 sides, let's say. The first one, we are using large language models, but also small language models, as Rijas was mentioning before. That is a really clever idea to, let's say, have a big scale effect on checks of a qualitative nature. For instance, on the M&L side, you can check each and every comment of the KYC phase or each and every comment of the related to the transaction. But you cannot do it with the pool of human, because you need a really big pool of humans. But you can use the LLM to make a massive check, qualitative check, and express a classification of each and every note. For instance, millions and millions of records, millions and millions of notes. And then, of course, you have to apply your judgment to review. And also, if the model is not sure, you will have to check it. But as you can see here, there is a big scale effect. So on one side, this is on the audit engagement specifically. More generally, we are developing this assistant. Everyone is developing an audit assistant, I think, because it's like a trend of the moment. But as always is the case, the devil is in the details, let's say. So what we are doing is to, let's say, analyze all the audit cycle and understand where this kind of technology can have the biggest leverage effect, let's say. For instance, we are starting from the risk analysis phase. So we are trying to train these kind of models to help us in the risk analysis phase. We think this is really relevant because we have a lot of information, and every day there are more and more. We risk the, let's say, information overload. So we think that this kind of instruments can help us to reduce this kind of information overload, performing let's say, a cross risk analysis on all the audit universe with the data sources related to all the audit universe. So we think that this can have also a bigger of efficiency effect as well. Just to be brief.
Oh, very, very clear. Before I leave the floor to Ross, I remind you that you can ask questions through Slido. After we finish the panel discussion, we can raise the questions to the speakers. So Ross, or some use case from your experience you would like to share?
Yeah. So we've done some similar things to what Andrea mentioned as well, sort of extracting information meaning something out of text, and then creating data points around that so that you can analyze it further, which means you can review thousands of credit memos, see if there's ESG content in it, and make some kind of an assessment of what the ESG content is in the credit memo. That was one example. Another example that we've got was assessing the sentiment of the text where we have evaluated the risk and control self-assessment of an area in our report. And then trying to evaluate, well, is what we're saying matched what we have rated? So, and there we've been using, again, these small large language models, and these are fantastic for audit departments because they're things which we can run on our own laptops. You don't need a big cloud-based solution. We've been using 5.4 from Microsoft, which is a small large language model that on a reasonably powerful laptop, you can do some things pretty comparable to what we're able to do using the very large language models. I really put a little promotion there for them, again, because if you start to look at a couple of aspects, first of all, how many trees you burn down each time you ask a question, it's a lot fewer for one of these small language models. But then from an audit point of view, you've got much more control of what it's doing as well. So you know exactly which model you used. You don't know that with the cloud. And you can then have your reperformance and you're much more in control from an audit perspective. So I would definitely, if your team isn't investigating the use of these small large language models, they're super powerful. They can do a lot of things comparably to very large models, but they're not destroying the earth. And they're also way more usable. However, what I would maybe mention for the smaller audit departments who maybe aren't able to develop a technical data analytics competence, which you need to do this, you can do some of the same stuff I'm talking about using the large language models, using something like Microsoft Copilot. And there's something called Copilot Studio, which will allow you to then write to create low code. So this is for people who can just drag and drop things, saying for each thing in this spreadsheet, do this evaluation and give me an output into the spreadsheet, which is essentially what we're doing in Python a lot of the time. But then everybody can do it. I would say it's not as great as what we're able to do with the small language models, using Python, but it is definitely something worth pursuing if you're not able to spin up an analytics team capable of doing that.
Thank you, Ross. I have to say that listen to your experiences and to the use cases, and all of you are talking about amazing surprises that you have had facing artificial intelligence in internal audit. So it is good. It is very positive and optimistic for all of us for the near future. So let's go to the questions. First question: how to prevent fraud through the use of artificial intelligence? It's very, very interesting because you didn't mention in your use cases how artificial intelligence can cause fraud from external. Is anyone wanted to give some message, comment on the use of artificial intelligence for preventing external frauds?
So maybe, so the example I have in mind, so unfortunately it's not to prevent, but at least to detect fraud, is we use, so it's not AI, but we use a big data approach, model like isolation forest, for people who knows this, to look for pattern and to isolate outliers, simply speaking. Obviously, it's much more powerful than our, I think, Excel spreadsheet, because behind there is some model behind. And we get quite a good result. And actually, we use this technology not only for fraud, but for anything which are related to, again, pattern and outliers.
Yeah, and maybe building on that, one of the other things which we've used to sort of identify fraud patterns is with network analysis of transactions, so looking for a relationship between transactions. And there I can strongly advise visualization, because that allows you to see things that you will not see otherwise in the data. So that's been definitely a technique, not so much artificial intelligence, but advanced analytics as you were talking about.
Yes, sure. Very interesting. The second question, Andrea, is to you. What is the importance of the human in the loop?
Well, I think that it is at the again is at the core of the problem once again, because you cannot imagine currently any AI without a human in the loop. Of course, you have to keep the human within, also to first of all to check the results. Of course, we are moving to there is an evolution of these techniques as well. So an increased level of, let's say, ability of skills on their side, of course, but to always need the human in the loop, also because there is also a regulatory side of things. You have the AI Act that asks for something specific related to the responsibilities of people. So the AI cannot be let go wild. But let me add that I think that the relationship between the human and the machine, let's say, is quite clear. We can say that the idea here is to remove the boredom from the human work. So the idea is not to kick out the human from the loop, but to keep in the loop, but let's say delegating the more boring stuff to the machine, to the AI, so that the people can work on the most enjoyable aspects of their work, of their job.
Yes, it's very important. Also, in my opinion, the artificial intelligence must be used with prioritization, where we can have repetitive activities, boring activities, without a very high level of added value, I would say. Anything else from Chidao and Ross, or can we go to the hallucination risk?
Yeah, indeed. Maybe I
Well,
can take this one.
Yes,
Because
Chidao.
the first time I heard this, I was myself hallucinating. So so it's only one of the risks, but I like this word. So it's a risk of somehow the machine, so GPT, making up story, inventing things that doesn't exist. So the way to prevent this, the best we can. So in Société Générale, we have drafted a one-pager of do's and don'ts. It's quite classic. Just to share with you, the three main for me is first, the prompt that we use has to be clear, specific, contextual to avoid any ambiguity. That's one. Second is we don't use AI for final verification. It's always, as Andrea said, it's an assistant for us, and we still need to keep our judgmental approach. And last one, very interesting, don't overlook a red flag. Red flag is like when you read the answer of GPT, it looks so confident, very detailed. Be suspicious, like auditor can do and know how to do. And the story I have is once I did this, and the answer was so convincing that it was too nice to be true. And actually, I asked the machine to double check. I say, "Are you sure about this?" Double check, like what we would do with human being in reality, right? If you have a suspicion of a word that someone gives to you, you would challenge the person. So challenge the machine the same way that we will challenge a human being, and ask the machine, "Are you sure?" Double check, check this, check that.
So the importance of the human in the loop, as Andrea
Exactly.
was saying. The last question, because we have only 4 minutes more for you, Ross. Would you comment something about the acceptance of risk?
yeah, I mean, accepting risk with AI, well, we're accepting risk with everything we're doing. And in general, what AI is allowing you to do is to cover more than you were doing before, and then sometimes do it better than you were doing it before. So in a sense, you're exchanging risk rather than accepting new risk. So often you are accepting the risk of not covering something. Now you're accepting the risk of covering something with AI and potentially having hallucination risk or whatever else. It's just a different risk that you're exchanging it for. So I think that would how I would put it. But I'd link it very much back to the human in the loop and the skills thing. If you've trained your humans right, you can mitigate the risk and reduce it to a level which is acceptable. So absolutely key is the humans.
Yeah. So
Although what I could say, we've even got to the stage of sometimes using AI to check AI. So we build an AI model to do something, and then we check it with another AI model.
yes,
So,
be careful to the hallucination risk. Be careful. Okay, thank you very much. It was very interesting from my side. The key points of our webinar about the use of artificial intelligence. First of all, people are in the center of the model. So it is a matter of change management. It is a matter of engaging people, and skill is the priority, and we have to create a center of excellence. We can see on the screen, it is a surprise. Can you explain, Andrea, what happened during the webinar?
Yeah, to be true to the topic of this webinar, we asked to Copilot to record, of course, listen to us, let's say, and finally to provide the key takeaways of this webinar. So I think he's done a good job. I mean, we have to check and double check, of course, to avoid the hallucination, but it seems on the first glance that it is quite satisfying results, isn't it?
I buy it.
Yes, very, very interesting. We can send all these key points to the attendees. From my side, it's very important to take people, maintain people in the center of the model, to engage people. It's very nice what you said about the merge between the business auditor on the one hand and the data scientist on the other hand. And it is something that when it works, it is a magic merge, a magic. We can have a magic surprises, and you have talked about amazing surprises. So thank you again. I leave the floor to Pascal. So Pascal, you can close the webinar.
Yeah, so thank you very much to everyone. And I think it's good to see that we still need a little bit of human, just to share some points amongst us. For the rest, thank you very much for the very interesting discussion. It was really very inspiring for all of us. I really like the hallucination risk. Thank you. That's a good one. I never heard before, so I learned. Thank you for my own learning. Regarding the CPE certificate, you can still put your details in Slido and you will receive your certificate. And regarding the slides and the recording and the summary from AI, but a little bit adjusted by us, with a human touch, this will all be available next week on the website. So thank you to everyone. Have a great summer. And I hope to see you soon for another session of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.